Welcome to Growing Your Firm, brought to you by Jetpack Workflow. Here's your host, David Crostello.
Hey everybody, David Crostello here, founder and CEO of Jetpack Workflow, host of Growing Your Firm podcast. Today's episode's a bit of a different one. I have Geoff Bruskin back on, and we had him on and we talked about M&A, we talked about PE. He's been at the forefront last number of years, kind of leading transactions. We did a whole episode on that, and we jumped on the call here, and I was like, man, what do you want to talk about? He's like, I don't know, what do you want to talk about? And then we just started riffing, and then you said something. You're like, "Oh, I have an interesting take on talent," and you go, "Oh, by the way, are we recording? Oh my gosh, we're not recording. Let's hit record." So we're gonna go into the talent discussion here in a second. But for our audience, maybe they didn't watch the first episode. Who are you? High level, what do you do?
Thanks, Dave. Yeah. So I'm Geoff Bruskin. I run White Tiger Connections. We do mergers and acquisitions for CPA firms. We sell CPA to private equity, to wealth management, to other CPA firms, to independents. We also do recruiting for the CPA profession. I stood up a company about a year and a half ago, a second business, doing business brokerage for our clients' clients. So we now help CPAs' clients sell their businesses as well. So we're very attuned. Kind of the two biggest trends, Dave, are M&A and technology. I'm sorry, M&A and talent. And then the recent thing that we've done a lot of work with is technology enablement with software companies or infrastructure companies, kind of levying the M&A and the recruiting conversation to optimize both through technology enablement. So those are the three biggest aspects of what I do every day.
Very cool. Yeah, and right before I hit record, you'd ask me a question. You're like, "Hey, what's new? What do you see new is changing the landscape?" And I said something to the effect of, you know. Every week it's like PE's great, PE's not great. You're going to do PE. We're going to do a quasi PE. We're going to do an offshoot PE. We're making our own little PE that's not PE. And it's like blah, blah, blah. And so I hear like the transactions are going to happen. I think valuations are going to steadily increase. I think there's a lot of liquidity in the market right now. And I think that will continue to happen. But what I mentioned is the thing that's like the bottleneck is people trying to understand talent and talent acquisition
Yeah.
and talent retention. And for folks that are really, excited or even not secure in their technology perspective, they're like, well, AI is coming, ChatGPT is here. What are we going to do? And it's like, if you're making great talent decisions, that makes all these hurdles a lot easier. And I think when you try to do it by yourself or you try to do it with a suboptimal team, everything moves slower. And so you're like, how do we integrate ChatGPT? If you don't have a good team, that's on you. That's on the owner. That's on the managing partner to go out and figure out. And guess what? You probably don't have the time or bandwidth. But if you have a team that is humble and ambitious and collaborative and forward thinking, and they work on themselves and they work, and they're just constantly hungry but have the right attitude, everything's going to move faster on like what's the right tool, what's the right use case for this thing. And I think that's what we're missing. And so we're perpetually complaining about talent, but we're not doing anything different to solve it. And I think that's the thing that I am on the constant lookout for. What are people doing differently to navigate that? Because to me, that's the cornerstone of unlocking a lot of these other decisions firms have to make. And you said, I have an interesting take on that. And that's where we left off. So what do
Love
you
it,
got?
man. Yeah, thanks. So I'll share just one story that's maybe the most indicative of what I want to drive at, and then there are others that I could go into that give maybe slightly different angles on it. But so yesterday I had a conversation, a $10 million firm in public accounting. They're in a particular space. I won't tell you what because they're pretty niche oriented, and you could probably back into it if you wanted to. But they do one thing really well. One function to one industry really well. And they're about 10 million in revenue, 40+% margin between the two partners. Like it's a pretty rocking business, relatively young founders. And they want to
Like,
move into, go ahead.
no, they're rich. They're cash
They're
flow. I mean,
rocking.
they are
Yeah.
rocking it, like you said. I mean,
Yeah.
they
Yeah,
and
I mean, I assume they're 50-50, so $2 million a year they're taking home. I mean, that's like, I mean, they, bang, bang, bang. He told me like 10 million, 40% margin, niche specific. So we're doing well, but we want to grow. They want to grow from 10 million to 100 million.
yeah, that's the beauty of having your cash base. Like these folks have their cash base and they're like,
So
we're set for
opportunistic.
life. Let's go have fun. Let's keep growing, right? So
Yeah. So I mean, they're innovative. They're super. So they want to grow into, Dave, an ancillary category. Same industry, different function, if you will, is where they see the most ability to
interesting.
cross
Yep.
sell to their existing client base. So that niche specificity is huge, and they know talent in their market really well. their industry, their function. If somebody doesn't come from their industry but comes from the function, they can train them on the industry, and they've got a great ritual for doing that, great kind of understanding of compensation models. They're also fully remote, by the way, which is a gigantic value add if you as a firm owner can solve for how to create a remote workforce, because then you're just playing on a completely different playing field when it comes to talent, right? Doesn't mean it's easy still, but there's different challenges, but your access to talent is going to be so much richer. But then in this ancillary, and then, right, if it comes, somebody comes from the same industry, same function, different industry, they can train them, and they can even train people if they come from the same industry, different function, they can train them into their model. So they've got their little $10 million.
That's the beauty of niching, right? I mean,
Yeah,
super high
exactly.
margin. And
Right.
when people think of niches, they're like, oh, maybe we can make 500,000, 1 million. They're doing 10,
10. Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And they have the choice to say, when it comes to hiring, we're never going to lose for compensation. Now, they may not lead with that, and they may never
But
do
you're
that. They
right.
might say we may say we pay 75%. I feel like everyone's like, that's very common. We pay 50 to 75%. They might just say we pay top 10%, top 5%. Like
But
nobody's going to beat us on that. Okay?
right,
But
but
let's
the
set
right.
that
But
aside and then look at everything else.
no, I actually think it's a great point. I think the point is that they're able to get only A's or A minuses when it comes to talent, because they're able to pay in the top, whatever, 10, 20, 30% of roles, and whatever it is. They're clearly highly compensating people, and they're getting the best people. And those best people are working in a highly streamlined and optimized environment. So you might be paying 200 where market is 170. I'm just throwing numbers out. But instead of getting the normal 3 times return for that person, you're getting 5 or 6 times return because they're so efficient. Anyway, that's just context. They want to expand, same industry, different function, ancillary, right? This is all public accounting, so there's not that many choices. You guys get what I'm saying. So they've tried to hire several times for like the leader who's going to grow this separate function in the same industry. And they're like, we're not industry specific. It could come from a different industry as long as they're a subject matter expert in this function. They've got leadership capability, and they failed at the hire twice now so far. Both times they
When you
were.
say
Go
when
ahead.
they failed, did they actually bring on somebody or they
Made an
didn't even pull the
offer. One
okay.
guy didn't show up to his first day of work, and the other guy lasted like 6 days and then left. And
Wow.
so, yeah, kind of strange. And so they, after the second time, they're like, we're doing something wrong. Maybe we can't hire for this. Maybe we have to buy. And so maybe we have to buy a company that's in this different function. So they had a conversation with me. They reached out to me because they're like, we want to buy a $2 million business in this function, does not have to be in this industry. And then together we'll take the $2 million company and our $10 million company, Dave, and we'll grow it to 100 million. And whoever's running the firm that's 2 million can be our guy that takes them to 100 million in that specific function. We'll roll equity, we'll do crazy incentives, blah blah blah. And this is the point that I wanted to make. What I said to them is, you realize you're going to have to hire anyway, don't you? They said, well, what do you mean by that? I said, if you buy a $2 million firm, why is that $2 million firm on the market? Chances are it's on the market because the owner has succession planning challenges and they're looking to get out. How many 45-year-old or whatever owners of a $2 million firm in the public accounting space have the mental agility to say, I want to join a $10 million firm and be the functional leader and grow? Most of
And
them don't have that.
you'd have to pay up big time, right?
You're going to have to roll a tremendous, and I'm not saying it's impossible. Actually, it's quite possible. And we can talk more about that too today. If the pro forma that you produce for that 45-year-old is significantly greater than what their no action scenario is, and that's what you're
Yeah.
always evaluating against. A quick aside, I have a guy I'm talking to right now, $2.5 million firm owner, $1.8 million bottom line. He's also gangbusters rich. He's got a great team offshore. He's got like 2 managers in the US, and then it's him. And he's tax advisory, accounting advisory, tax compliance, and accounting compliance. No niche specificity. He's in his mid 40s. Dave, he's been approached like 10 times by PE. Best offer he's gotten so far is like 7 times adjusted EBITDA. So they adjust him from 1.8 to 1.2. Times 7 is 8.4 million. And then like a $400,000 salary for 10 years. That's 4 million plus 8.4 is 12.4 million is his 10-year package. super attractive until you consider for a second, if he does nothing for 10 years, he's making $18 million. Why is he going to do that? There's no reason for him
Is
to do
that the
that.
big mistake on that deal? Is this 10-year? Because it's like if you want to pull your cash forward, that 8.5 or whatever you mentioned, if you want to pull that forward,
Mhm.
great. You do a 1 year, $500,000 salary, and they're out. And then you're like, okay, I just got 9 years of my life back. I'm gonna go whatever. Maybe they have something else they want to do.
If the 45-year-old is going to sell, and that's what they're thinking about, right? They're thinking about getting out. But again, go back to the $10 million firm's perspective for a second, or a $3 million firm, one of your listeners, right, who's thinking about buying. A lot of people think about buying in this space because they want to buy talent. They don't even care about the cash flow. That, can we at least break even? Can I at least not exhaust myself in the amount of cash I have to put up front? But they
Yeah,
want to buy talent. No, the reason the firm's selling is because they have talent problems, right? So I
yeah,
told them this yesterday, and they're like, "Wow, we have to hire." So it's like, no matter how you slice the pie, we have to
yeah.
solve for the talent problem. And I think like the crazy thing that I come from a recruiting background, Dave. I turned business broker. We still do about 30% of our business annually is recruiting. 70% is now M&A because there's so much focus on the space. But there are answers to the talent question. It's just they all have hair on them, just like all deals have hair on them, right? All of the you either have to think about remote more dynamically than you currently are. It's surmountable. You have to think about offshoring more dynamically than you currently are. It's surmountable. You have to think about the compensation for your in-office staff more robustly than you currently are. It's surmountable. You have to think about the operations and the technology enablement that your staff, wherever they are, the environment that they're working within. It's surmountable. You have to think about your billing to your clients and the client boundaries and the expectations that they have and the service quality that you're providing. It's surmountable. All of these things, which are the same things we talk about all day, you really have to laser precision into the talent question and you can solve it. But a lot of firm owners lack the reality is the kind of the focus and the mental fortitude to tackle that problem. And it makes sense because you're dealing with a chaotic environment already.
Yeah, that's such a good point. And yeah, everybody wants to, hire for talent. And even in the world where you're that $10 million firm and you're like, oh, you're right, they're going to want to leave and they're not going to want to be involved unless, I mean, they're going to have to start structuring things like PE and software, right? So there's going to be a mixture of higher multiples plus that equity roll up plus the vision of like you get the flip. So like it's very, very common in software. You get approached by a PE firm. They don't say it in this way, but it's some version of we're gonna hold for 3 to 5 years. We're gonna buy you and a bunch of your friends. Okay, we're gonna roll it all together. We're gonna jam an X layer. We're gonna put a sales team. We're gonna put this layer on it, and pop 3 to 5 years. We're gonna pull you all together. We're gonna drive profits out of you, and we're all gonna flip. And you're gonna make a nice piece on the initial transaction. Our hope is you make even more on the second transaction,
Second bite of the
right?
apple.
Yeah, second bite of the apple. That's what everybody says. Second bite of the apple is even bigger than the first. And I think for people that want to play in that space for accounting, they're going to have to sell that. And it's a really hard sell because it's not the normal deal. It's like, like you said, people are like, they're 60 and they're like, I'm good. We want to go have some fun before the grandkids come in and we're stationary. So, like, we're going to travel. We're going to go live our lives. We're in our 50s or 60s. Grandkids are going to come hopefully in 10 years and then we're going to come back and we're going to hang out with them and that's it. Like we don't want to do a second bite. We don't want to go work even harder on this deal. And when you do a deal, you don't get to see the team either because one could argue like, okay, we're not going to get the owner partner, but maybe they have strong, bench strength. There's other people on there that maybe we can level up. You're like, hopefully. I mean, you don't know. You're not going to interview the team during these deals because deals fall apart. So nobody's going to say, oh, yeah, we're thinking of. It's very disruptive to
Be
introduce a
at the
buyer to
11th
your
hour,
team.
if at all. Right.
Yeah, if at all, right? It's the 11th hour, right?
Yep.
And and so yeah, it doesn't solve the pipeline problem.
So here's an interesting maybe addendum furthering of what we're talking about. The other thing which often happens, Dave, is I'm having this conversation with $10 million firms, $15 million firms, even the $5 million, $2 million firm that wants to buy, the one that has the young owner who's aggressive, successful, got a great margin, and they want to leverage that in order to buy and to start doing things on their own. The conversation often becomes, Well, at some point, Jeff, we might want to transact ourselves. We're going to wait for a point in the future to do that. And the interesting thing is, like, when does the buyer become the seller? And is the only variable that matters their time? Or is there a scenario where maybe today this $10 million firm could think it would really be willing to sell, right? In the same way that we're talking about with the software company. The answer is yes. But what needs to be shown by the seller is not by the buyer, excuse me. Like, this is the problem that's replete within the accounting profession. Dave, I know you're going to resonate this with your listeners will as well. Why is it that the profession is so broken? Well, if we talk about with talent, the top 100 firms, for example, there's super amorphous paths to partner. There's no kind of concrete roadmap that the manager at PwC or the principal at at Eisner or whatever, like, when are they going to make partner? Well, when somebody dies, retires mandatorily, and then their book is handed over. Like that, when you generate enough business, perhaps, what a lot of accountants are not natural rainmakers, or are so busy they don't have the opportunity to do it. So there's this stigma in the profession, which is earned, that I don't want to think about a hypothetical scenario. That's not my accounting nature. I'm conservative. I don't want to think about maybe I'm going to get a bigger bite at the apple. I have no idea, Mr. Investor, what your debt position looks like, how
Yeah.
leveraged you are.
Yeah.
I'm not involved in your executive committee meeting. So
And
what is that?
there's no
Yeah, go
history
ahead.
of this happening in the profession either, right? You don't it's
All of the
not
above.
common to meet an accounting firm owner and you're like, I know when you sold, you got Range Rover money, but how did you get Lamborghini money? And they're like, well, we got the second bite. This is just not a story. There's
Oh,
not
and most
examples of this.
accountants don't care about the Lamborghini. They want the Range
Or
Rover and not have to
it
sweat.
insert, second, third home, yacht, whatever. You know what I
Right.
mean? There's like it's like, well,
Totally.
I knew you cashed out, but now I'm seeing you really like there's not proof,
But there's
right?
hunger, though. There is a class that has hunger. So here's where it could make sense. I'll give you one example of it's a profound example. The wealth management space buying tax firms. Historically, RIAs would do JVs, joint ventures with tax firms, because it was a growth strategy
Yeah.
for the RIA. Captive group of client that I could cross market my wealth management and insurance financial services to, right? That's what I call an offensive strategy. Well, what started happening recently is that Fidelity and Schwab at the top of the market are offering, in the wealth management space, a fully integrated client experience, Dave. So a high net worth individual or closely held business can go to a Fidelity and can get wealth management, insurance placement, estate planning, tax advisory, bookkeeping, bill pay, multifamily office services, everything that you can imagine in one location. The mid-market RIAs, say 2 billion to 50 billion in AUM, are starting to sweat if they don't yet have the ability, especially to provide tax. So it's not only about, JVs or M&A, it's not only about can we grow through partnering, buying CPA firms. It's we don't want to become obsolete because our clients leave for a place where they can have this integrated service. RIAs are very bullish right now about the tax space. So what does that mean? Take it from my 2.5 million top line, 1.8 million bottom line guy. Maybe there's a way I can show him in a pro forma context how over the next 10 years, because he's not ready to retire yet, he wants to grow. How does he make more money inside of an environment where he sells? Maybe he sells 49% of his CPA firm, he keeps 51, he then gets 20%, for example, of everything that comes in through his portal when it comes to the adjacent AUM, and he has a 13,000 clients inside of a $25 billion RIA that all need tax desperately.
Yeah.
He's not
Yeah.
going to do that work. They're going to build that organization around him. He's going to have 51% equity. His 51% equity might be worth more 10 years from now. I think guaranteed it will be, than what his 100% equity looks like today, because he's walking into such a fertile environment. Not to mention what all the AUM is going to look like that comes through his door, where he's getting that piece as well. There are scenarios out there. That's a perfect example, but there are other spaces where the question the buyer has to ask, if they're getting approached left and right, what's the right scenario for me to sell sooner? How do I pro forma where I make maybe one, two, three orders of magnitude more inside of an environment in
Yep.
the next decade plus than what I have the ability to make on my own? That's a worthwhile question to ask.
I think deals are going to have to be creative like the one you just mentioned. And I do want to get back to this $10 million conundrum, like what they're going to do. Do they have to get a recruiter. Maybe they have to bring recruiters in house. Somebody has to figure that out. But the
It's
concept of,
more, yeah, go ahead. I'm
well,
sorry.
I wanted to say like the concept of, but that's what I was going to ask. I wrote down this number 33%.
So
I'm
darn
like,
excited.
what is the ability to purchase, a minority or majority stake in an accounting firm, and then what is the narrative that must be true for them to be like, this is great, I'm happy. I mean, selling a minority stake, that's one thing. Okay, I'm going to sell a piece, I'm going to get a little liquidity, and I'm going to get exclusive access to X service or X community. I think that makes a lot of sense. But that's if people want to figure this out, I feel like these deals are going to have to go in this place where it's not a full transaction.
So I think there's like three different things to unpack there. Um, there's like the sell a piece or take an injection of capital. There's the do we like that's so it's call it investment is option one. Take investment. Option two is buy,
Yeah.
right? And then option three is hire, right? And the answer could be two of those things or three of those things potentially to solve for it. But here's shameless plug for myself. What I sold these guys yesterday, we'll see if they bite because they've got to pay me an upfront fee. Is
The 10 million
the
people.
10 million, yeah.
Yeah.
Is pay me a $10,000 retainer to come in, and that's a show of good faith that you're serious and it's going to cover my cost, but I'm in this for the success fee for you guys. And I will work it. Hopefully we can make something happen this year as long as it takes. I'm going to bring to you guys all of the opportunities across those three buckets that might be a fit. And I'm going to help you evaluate each opportunity in each respective bucket on a case by case basis. And I will advise you as to what I think is fair, proper, going to be realistic, appropriate, and help you solution what this problem is that we're facing, regardless of which of the buckets, because any of those options could be the answer. It's also true that 9 out of 10 prospects in each of those buckets will fall short in terms of their consummate ability to bring about the outcome that we're looking for. It could be a hire. If we find the right hire to run that and they're realistic about how much equity they need, what their walk in the door compensation is, what's the balance of their compliance and technical capabilities versus their advisory capabilities and their team leadership capabilities and their operational ability to connect the plumbing between the verticals, has to be taken in, side by side with other candidates, but it also has to be, Dave, taken side by side with M&A things that come to the table or investors that come to the table. So I think the best answer is your solution. You need to consider all options. You can't throw
Yeah.
out an option and again, shameless plug for me, but I'm not the only person who's an SME in this industry. You probably should work with a consultant who understands the ecosystem of possible solutions and can advise you on specific cases that come to your desk.
Yeah. Whatever. Yeah. I mean, the objective is to find the person, and that's the goal. The other thing I was thinking about, like I was talking, we had, it's not published yet, although I guess it'll be published maybe when we publish this one. We had Dave Olson on from Nimble, and so he has the accounting firm, he has an outsourcing firm, he did an IT firm, and his journey was, for years, he was a sole shop CFO. So it's him. He's making good money. He's doing 4, 5, 600K a year. His outsourced CFO is essentially him, maybe an assistant. And then somewhere along the way, he was like, "What am I doing with this? Maybe I want to grow it, right?" And then this came this moment, but it was like 5 or 6 years in, and it feels like this firm, this 10 million, you either need to find like the uh the 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 flushed but bored solopreneur who has aspirations for something bigger, where Dave was 5 years in. It's really hard because it's a moment. It's a moment in time. There's a thing in the road
Oh,
where they
yes.
say, I'm gonna maybe I'll cash out a little bit and I'm gonna get this stake and I'm gonna ride this journey. Or something that Dave also mentioned was part of their jump start when he took it serious. I would say would take it serious when he decided to scale it up. It was serious even at the lower dollar amount, but they did it. They did a small carve out of a larger firm, in a niche that they didn't want to have exposure to. And so it's like you could either grab somebody that's doing a couple $100,000 a year and they're just like, I don't want to, hiring's, annoying. I don't want to do that. maybe when they join, we're like, yeah, but you're going to need to hire and we're going to teach you, or you carve out a mid-market firm where a leader comes with it, because that's somebody that doesn't, maybe they're on partner track, it's very nuanced, but maybe you give them more upside and then they offload. Like I was talking, we had another interview with Michael Mayhouse and he did, East Side, no, what was it? Employee 401k audits. So like that's his specialty. And he was
Yep.
at a firm and he was like, I like doing this. The firm doesn't like doing this. So, somebody came along and they wanted to, carve out essentially Michael and his book of business. He could have, because the firm really didn't want to do it. Michael was the guy. What Michael ended up doing is he just left and he's like, I'm doing my own thing. And they're like, great. Can you take all these clients with you? Because without you, this doesn't exist. But that's a sniper, right? Those are hard things to find.
Yeah, but they're surmountable. That's
Yes.
the most important thing. So there are people, there are people like you and me who can help firm owners facilitate that outcome. I mean, that's that's where the combination consultant and transactional solution provider come into play. The consultant can advise you, and obviously the decision is yours. I'm not. I want to keep a relationship with my clients and my reputation growing, Dave. I don't want to jam a bad solution down your throat that you're not going to take anyway because intuitively you know it's not right. Everything is about education and access. Those are the two biggest things. Access is, to your point, you have to find it. But education is, what are the implications to this? What are the risks? What's the reality of the market presence that we're in right now? How likely is it that I'm going to find something else? And then when you do find the thing that's right, you go after it, right? Because the right opportunity, whether it's a person or a firm or investment and access into an ecosystem, we're talking about orders of magnitude of scale possible. That the difference between a 10 million growing to 20 million in the next decade or a 10 million growing to 100 million in the next decade, we're actually talking about that much possibility. So it's worth it to find a group, a technology, a consultant that can facilitate the order of magnitude possibility when you have when you get serious about it, as you say, about scale.
Yeah. Yeah, about scale. Jeff, this has been a lot of fun. This is a new format. So if people are listening, you enjoyed this is less of an interview and this is more of a discussion. So if you enjoyed this approach to episodes, maybe we won't do every episode this way, send me a note, David at jetpackworkflow.com. Just say, hey, I really enjoy kind of the back and forth banter versus the interview style. If this is up your alley, let me know. Jeff was nice enough to come on and kind of experiment with this style. Jeff, if people want to reach out to you, I know you got a new podcast, you got things up in the air. How can our audience reach out to you?
Thank you, Dave. So whitetigerconnections.com is our website, and we also have nexus-point.com is my new podcast, and we've got some case studies and some blog posts that my team and I have written about what we see in M&A and recruiting in the space. And yeah, just super grateful for this platform and your audience, your listeners, and you, Dave. You're doing God's work in the accounting space. That's for sure.
Hey, I appreciate you and I appreciate you coming on. We're going to link everything up at jetpackworkflow.com/blog. Like I said, if you enjoyed this new format, let me know personally. And if you really enjoyed it, leave a review, share it out, share it with your community. Jeff, thanks again for coming on.
Thanks, Dave. Have a great day.
Thank you for joining Growing Your Firm, the podcast series for global, small, and medium-sized businesses ready to scale and increase profits. You can check out more podcasts by following the links in the show notes. And don't forget to subscribe, rate, and review wherever you're listening. At Jetpack Workflow, we're all about maximizing returns for accounting firms and CPAs. Check out more podcasts on growing your firm and subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts.